Hello and welcome to only the second episode of Shooting the Shit, which we are really still quite excited about. This was Hannah and I's brainchild. We've wanted for ages and ages to set up our own, podcast really, and this might become a podcast. But Facebook Live streaming session where we just basically talk about the things that we really want to talk about, and the things that really matter to us. And the things that most matter to us are feminism and business, because we run a digital marketing company, but we are women. We are in a specific field that is often, it's full of men, and it's perceived to be a very male-dominated field. And bringing feminism to SEO is sort of our lifelong ambition, really. So this is our small way of starting that. We don't know whether you guys can see Marisha. We've got Marisha Reynolds with us again. So hello, Marisha. Hey, you've just see you. We can't see Marisha. We can hear her, but we can't see her. But I will we'll start off with introductions. Let's start off from a logical place, shall we? I'm Rachel. I'm one of the directors at Grow Traffic. I'm also a Soroptimist. Soroptimism is a women's organisation. So feminism is a thing that matters to me and that I care about. So Hannah, who are you?
I'm Hannah. I'm also a director at Grow Traffic, and I have been described by a couple of people as a ball-breaking feminist, which I'm incredibly proud of.
There we go. And Marisha, who are you?
I'm Marisha, and I'm in telecoms is my day job, which is typically male orientated and dominated. I also run some networking groups, and I have a fledgling marmalade business as well. So a bit of all sorts, basically. But yeah, I'm doing it for the ladies in telco.
So has anybody ever called you a ball baking feminist, Marisha?
No, they haven't actually. No,
not you,
no, it's not. I don't think so. Maybe something else, but yeah.
I think this is the thing, isn't it? I was doing a stream with my friend Jenny Hardman. Hello, Jenny Hardman. Last week I was on her Unicorns Fairy Dust and Bullshit podcast. And we were talking there about feminism, and it's still really a perception that if you are a feminist, you are some sort of man-hating, militant psychopath.
And it's true.
I was going to say.
I genuinely don't get where this comes from. So it's a bit like, I've been a vegetarian for sort of 25 years, and whenever you say to people like, I'm a vegetarian, they always go, "Oh, you're not stopping me from eating bacon sandwiches." It's like, well, hang on a minute, I wasn't going to. It's a bit the same when you tell people you're a feminist, people respond with, "Oh, well, I think everybody should have equal rights. I think equal."
Yeah, me too.
That's exactly what I'm fucking talking about. Jesus Christ. But yeah, Samara's watching. Hi, Samara. Another ball-breaking feminist on the line. So anyway, we decided that today we were going to talk about Me Too. We were actually going to talk about it last week, but then the Black Lives Matter thing sort of took over. So we talked about that instead. But we're going to talk about Me Too today. So Hannah, do you want to tell us a little bit about Me Too? Because you've just quickly done some Googling. So.
Professional.
I just fact-checked myself. Yeah, so the Me Too movement started off in 2006 as a kind of MySpace platform for women to go and be empowered and share, how vulnerable they felt in the workplace and stuff. It was started by a woman called Tarana Burke. And then in 2017, it kind of really took hold because obviously there was the Harvey Weinstein disgusting activities, which highlighted the predatory sexual behavior in Hollywood, which led to an actress, Alyssa Milano, posting on Twitter, "If every woman who's ever been sexually inappropriately experienced inappropriate sexual conduct at work replied with Me Too, then we would start to see the magnitude of the problem, which obviously it just blew up. And from then it's gone into every country in all corners of the world and every industry, it's changed the law and it's changed perceptions. But that was 2017, and it's quite a long time ago. And there was all this kind of kerfuffle at the time, a bit like we're seeing now really with Black Lives Matter, where people where men were saying, "Oh, you know, we can't even wolf whistle at women in the streets now. We can't even grab a pair of tits without being called a pervert." And it's a bit similar, really, to how things are going now with Black Lives Matter and people going, "Yeah, well, what about white lives too?"
Yeah.
So, I just wanted us really to do Me Too this week so that we could see if 3 years on, if there was any long-lasting impact from our kind of experiences in the workplace, or if it's just kind of fizzled out for us.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite phenomenal, wasn't it? All of that response of so many men said to me, like, "I can't even pay a woman a compliment anymore." It's like, well, no, you can pay a woman a compliment as long as you're not squeezing her ass at the same time as you're saying it. That's perfect.
Yeah. As long as your dick's not hanging out, you can pay them a compliment.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Marisha, how have you? I mean, do you remember the Me Too movement coming out? Has it affected your working life? Because, as you said, you work in quite a male-dominated area, don't you? So, what's the impact been for you?
Yeah, it's. I'll be honest. I do struggle with this topic a little bit, to be honest with you, because for me, it's. I get it, wholeheartedly, and I understand where it came from and why, and that there is that pure predatory type of activity out there. I get that and I understand that, and I think there is the reason why I struggle with it is because it's so grey in as much as the line, let's just call it that, I don't know what else to say, but there's the activity where has been horribleness going on, and then there's also the that I guess kind of listening to the men that are like, well, we don't know what to do now, what can we say, what can't we say, where do we kind of fit? And I guess it's not really affected me in day to day. I think it's more it's maybe thought about until people have had a drink, quite frankly, and then it all goes out the window, and and then it all goes back to exactly the same as it has always been. And I think maybe again, I struggle in this space because I can kind of hold my own as well with that kind of activity, and so that's why I struggle. I don't really relate. It's as simple as that. And yeah, I can't really have an opinion on that.
There is a lot of that, though, isn't there? Because I've never been, a kind of, and I don't mean this in any. I've always been quite a kind of strong, self-confident person, and so I've never felt it's that victimhood kind of label, isn't it? And this is a really tricky area that as women we need to address. We don't want to put ourselves in the victim category, and so we are really reluctant to say to ourselves, yeah, actually that probably wasn't a very good situation, or maybe I shouldn't have been in that, because we don't want to feel like we are a victim. I've had the same thing. I've had things happen. When I used to work as a waitress, for example, stuff used to happen to me. Men used to touch me, people who were my employers as well as general customers. And when I worked in bars and things like that. But I never wanted to look at it as a feminist issue, because I wanted to believe that I was completely in control of those situations. And I did it. And I think it's something we have to, be honest about admitting to ourselves, isn't it? Did it happen? Have we not faced it because we are really strong, powerful women, or have we faced it but we haven't wanted to admit that that's maybe what it was?
Or have we maybe not noticed it, in a sense? Like, I'm hyper aware of people looking down my top because you have
huge tits. And then look down your top a lot.
Yeah. So, but not everyone notices that, and I think it's a good point. Like, how low level is low level? Like, is looking down someone's top whilst they're talking or bending over a table to grab a pen, is that sexual harassment? Well, probably not harassment, but it's objectification, and it doesn't have a place in the workplace. I just want to say as well, it's not only a female issue. 1 in 6 men have been feel like they've been sexually harassed or sexually objectified in the workplace, and probably a lot of that is Marisha.
That is another way that we need to address it, don't we? We can't sit on this side of, we're women, and you're not allowed to look at us and touch our asses and objectify us, because we do it to men. I've worked with young lads and kind of put them in positions that if I was a young woman and there were a group of men doing it to me, I would have felt victimized and vulnerable, and yet a group of older women felt it all right.
Young man.
Honestly, this is just terrible. Honestly, this is why I should not be on this call, because things are going to come out. We don't want to talk about those things. It's just not.
Ushering teenage boys into cupboards.
True, isn't it? We have to accept is that obviously we are feminists. We stand on the side. I'm bringing to mind the Guilty Feminist podcast here. We are feminists, but we have to maybe be honest about situations and say, is there a point at which it is just human nature that we have a bit of bants in the workplace, and maybe we're a bit rude about people, and maybe we go a bit far, and that works both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in that kind of like how low is too low. And I think that this is where I struggle and why I struggle, because if I catch someone looking at my magnificent breasts, I'll call them out on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, eyes up. Do you know what I mean? And I'll say something, whereas not everybody is confident in doing that, or, wants to, or, or feels threatened. There's so much other stuff that goes around that. So yeah, that's why I struggle with it, really. But I agree, it goes both ways. Absolutely.
Go on.
I'm sorry. We're coming at it from a really privileged position, the three of us, because we're not really particularly downtrodden. We have rights that women around the world don't have. We have opportunities, we have privileges, and we have the right to speak out and say eyes up. Whereas in lots of countries, if a woman was even dared to acknowledge it, there'd be serious consequences. So I think for us, that's a really important distinction to make, that we are outspoken. We're not really we're not subjugated. We're not oppressed more so than any other woman in the country.
Given the positions that we are in, we are walking into a room from a position of power. We are walking into the room as, people who are high up in our companies, or business owners, directors of a company. We are walking into a room on a knowing that we are in an equal footing with, the men that are in the room and the other women that are in the room. And that is not the case. It's not even about other countries. That's not the case for every woman in this country. There are young girls going into circumstances that they are vulnerable, and they're not able to say, eyes up, or don't fucking put your hand on my arse. Because I remember when I walked into a networking meeting a few years ago, and there was an older man, and he came up to me, he gave me a kiss on the cheek, and he properly put his hand on my arse, and I said, "What the hell are you doing? Get your hand up." But again, I am confident enough, and like Hannah says, we are privileged. We've had the benefit of a good education. We've been brought up in families where we've been taught to know our worth. We have educated ourselves on these matters. Again, this is what I mean. There are blurred boundaries, and we have to be grown up enough to say, I admit that I behave like that. Am I at fault? Am I perpetuating something?
I think so. I think, that whole, conversation about perpetuating, because, and again, this is another thing that I struggle with, being a woman in the workplace. Let's face it, sometimes you can use that womanliness, to get what you want, or to do what you want, or do you know what I mean? There is that angle as well, both sides, I'm just because, I'm female. So, there's so many other questions then that kind of off the back of this, and should you, and have I, and maybe not, and it gets you thinking about all sorts of other things, really. And it's it's not black and white by any stretch.
No, it's not black and white. I mean, not even just the workplace. I remember when we were at Kendall Calling last year, and there was this massive queue for the bar, and I was like, Hannah, get your tits out and push yourself to the front.
And obviously I said no.
She didn't. She pulled the top down and she barged away.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
We do, using our womanliness. I've gone into meetings, fully admit, I've gone into meetings and flirted my way to a contract. I perhaps can't do it as well now as I used to be able to do.
Yeah, that's why we're all starving.
There's a time limit on that, isn't there, where you're able to use that?
But nobody is sitting there saying a man has used his masculinity to get what he wants, and therefore, he can be sexually abused or sexually assaulted or sexually harassed or, have inappropriate remarks. It's okay to use your sexuality, I suppose, or your gender, as long as you're aware of that. But it's not okay to then have that turned back on you. It's okay to go out in a short skirt, but that's not asking for rape. It's kind of on the similar sort of level, isn't it? And I think as business owners and as really, really privileged women, we have a responsibility to call out where we see just really low level sexual harassment or like sexual misconduct taking place on both sides, really. I think I've told you before, I used to have an imaginary sexist alarm where I worked, and if someone said anything that was slightly inappropriate, I'd sound this pretend alarm and interrupt the meeting and point out why it was wrong, and it made me really fucking unpopular, but it made the meetings a lot less sexist. Because
this is one of the things I want to say, and we come back to where we started this conversation. Why does that make us unpopular? And why, if we're calling out behavior that we see and that we perceive to be wrong, we are all of a sudden considered to be ball breakers and pushy women, and it's bizarre.
Who cares if it makes us unpopular? Because people don't like to be told that they're doing something wrong, especially something that's so serious as being you're being a pervert, or you're being sexually inappropriate to that young girl, or to me, or to him, or to her, or whatever. Like, that is going to make us unpopular. But like, does it matter? Like, is it not more important to be right and to protect the interests of men and women and young boys and young girls who are the generation after us? Like, it's our responsibility to make the workplace a safer place for both of them.
Yeah.
And if that means that our colleagues hate us, I'm prepared to take that.
Well, yeah. I think there's a lot to be said as well, though, and there's definitely that kind of group mentality. So when you're in a group of people, it makes it so much more funny to be able to say, X or Y, male or female. This is, again, both sides, and so you standing up or saying something to say, or calling it out means that all of a sudden, that it's not funny anymore, and you're not popular anymore because you're not joining in. And, there's a lot of people that don't like that, you don't fit in all of a sudden because you've got a different opinion,
Yeah.
And I agree. Yeah, I don't care.
Again,
go on, mate.
Well, a lot of that comes with age. I remember I used to work at a mechanics garage in Wigan, and, it was a typical mechanics garage in Wigan in the 90s, and it was very, very sexist place to be. But at that point, I was a teenager. I was 17, 18, 19, and I didn't have the ability, and I didn't want to be seen as some sort of militant feminist. And I didn't call anything out. And there was some fucking shocking thing. They used to put all sorts of like horse porn on my computer and all sorts of stuff. And I never, I laughed along with it because I didn't want to be that person. And so again, we come back to that point of, now we are in this position of power, if you like, or better equality. You're right. It is our job to shout about it now, isn't it?
Yeah. And not everyone will want to be the person that stands up in a room full of people, even at our age or, in our position, and say, hey, come on, this is not on. But if you can, I feel like you should. And I think that's why things like Me Too are so good, because they've allowed everybody to have a platform, no matter how anonymous, you want to be. You can go on and share that you've experienced this incident. And just check, actually. Sometimes you just need to check that what you feel wasn't right actually wasn't right. And And I would say a good rule of thumb with that is if it feels like it wasn't right, then it wasn't right. You know, it's easy, isn't it, to shrug it off and say, oh, you know, it was just bants, it was just a bit of fun. So I think movements like Me Too are so great because they raised awareness and they provided a platform for people to seek support from.
Do either of you remember it? I know, Marisha, you're not on Facebook now. Were you on Facebook when it happened? Or was it 2017? Were you on then, Marisha?
Yeah.
So I remember when the Harvey Weinstein thing happened and they started posting the Me Too, literally, you know, hundreds of women that I know posted #MeToo on there. No details, just posted it. And at first I didn't know what was going on. I saw like 2 or 3 posts and I was like, what the hell are they all talking about? And I Google, keep up with the zeitgeist as a social media marketer. And I remember looking at it as they kept coming through, and it was one of those moments where I genuinely thought, like, shit, I've had moments like that in my life, several, when I think back to, you know, I lived in a house on my own from being like 17 and had, you know, quite a promiscuous lifestyle, let's put it that way, and keep it polite. But I was in situations, and I very nearly said then, I put myself in situations. I very nearly said that. But that's how I perceived it. I thought I put myself in those situations. And so, you know, bad things happened and I probably should have been a little bit more clever. But I'd never thought of them in that respect. I just thought I was a bit pissed. I was a bit stupid. I should have known better. I should have done something differently. But when all of that happened and I started looking back and I thought, no, actually, you know, this wasn't right, or that wasn't right, or I was, you know, in a vulnerable position. Somebody should have been more responsible for themselves in the way that they behaved to me. Do either of you remember that? Hannah, do you remember seeing that and thinking that, or is it something you'd always thought?
I think it made me quite. I'd always, you know, like every woman, which is really sad, there was some big bad things happen, and you know, I kind of knew those for what they were, that wasn't my fault, and yada yada. I think it made me re-examine the little things, the kind of low level sexism, everyday objectification. I think it made me look at that rather than the big things and think, shit, I probably shouldn't have. No, I nearly said again, I shouldn't have put myself in that situation.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained.
Yeah, isn't it? It's so ingrained.
Yeah.
Marisha, what about you?
I don't really have, you know, a memory of it being all up in my face and all, you know, in my space, if you like, other than what was on the news, and that's kind of it. So I didn't really kind of, you know, start to examine it, I guess, really. And I have thought about it and kind of thought back, and, you know, well, that opens a whole can of worms. Have you bought that yet? But you know, where, you know, you look back at past behaviours, you look back at past things, you know, there's that's, you know, crosses all sorts of other things as well. And, you know, I do kind of just roll with it, you know, in all honesty. And it's because it's kind of done now. And, you know, the past is the past for me, and I look forward. And if, you know, things need to change moving forward, then fine. If I can affect, you know, things that happen to other people or don't happen to other people, or I can stand up in different ways, and then fine. But there wasn't really, you know, oh my God, this has happened to everybody around me kind of feeling, really. But
yeah,
you know, I don't really have, you know, a massive amount of females around me either, actually. So, you know, maybe that's just why.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, you like us work in, you know, quite a male-dominated sector. We are both working, as in you two and me are working in Yorkshire and Lancashire. So these are really, you know, northern traditional kind of communities. If I go networking, you know, if there's somebody from a black or minority ethnic background, you know, they stand out. The majority of people are white. At least 2/3 of the people in any room that I walk into are going to be white middle-aged men. And I'm not by any means trying to do down white middle-aged men. Right? This is not an attack on anybody, but that's the demographic that we're dealing with. And I mean, what do either of you two think? Do you think that the Me Too movement even appeared on people's radars? I know we've said, you know, some people were all of a sudden on social media like, oh, I can't say anything anymore. But do you think in terms of the reality for those people, for the majority of the business community that we engage with, do you think it has had any impact? It's even come onto the radar? Do you think it's slowly changed? Marisha, I'll come into you. What do you think?
I think, there's an awareness of it, I think. I don't necessarily notice it when I'm networking, in all honesty, because I think that's when people are on their best behaviour. It's as simple as that. Yeah, they're creating impressions, they're wanting to connect with people, they're wanting to generate business. If I see through, where I see it the most is if I go to an industry event, because that's when people are starting to relax, they're around their friends, they kind of have a few drinkies, and that's when it starts to come out. And actually, no, I don't think it's made a massive difference, because the people that kind of perpetuate this stuff don't think there's a problem in the first place. So they don't recognize it when they're doing it again, unless someone says something. And that's when they start to stop and think, probably feel embarrassed, and there's again all these other things that come with that, about.
I do get that, because it is, as I've just said, it's hard to look back on your own behaviour and find fault with it. Like as both of us have just said, we were looking back on it as things that I've done in the past and thinking, oh, I did that, or I don't want to face up to maybe that was a stupid thing to do. I put myself in that situation. To look back on things that you've done and start reframing it is really, really hard work and takes quite a lot of courage. And I understand why people struggle with that and don't want to admit it. Do you think that there's changed, Hannah, with the people you sort of network with and meet outside Grow Traffic?
No. But I think the people who were going to do it anyway. I think the people that were, respectful and considerate weren't going to do it anyway. And what I think it's changed is the tolerance of people who have experienced like sexual objectification or abuse or harassment in the workplace. I think it's changed their perception. I think probably for our generation, not a great deal has changed, but for the next one, or the one just entering the workplace now, I would hope that it's, just pointed out to them that this isn't okay. And it's, it's all right for it not to be okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go on, Marisha.
I was going to say as well, sorry, I know I'm like checking on the time, but this, like, for me, it kind of opens up like a massive thing as well in terms of age and, that kind of, I think about, men that I've been around or am around, and, this is all sweeping generalizations I'm going to put out here, but,
generalizations are fine.
Yeah, but like the older generation, let's go there. They're almost like they're very respectful of women and would never dream of laying a hand on or would ask permission and all of that kind of stuff. And there's like then the younger, or older, younger, depending on where you kind of sit. There's that bit in the middle, I guess, that seem to have a bit of a free for all. And now, I think there's change for the people that are growing up now and coming into the workplace now. There's a lot more awareness of it all.
It's interesting that, isn't it? Because when you think about kind of timelines of where we've been and when we've gone, our mother's generation, my mum was a feminist in name only, if you like, but she was part of the 70s wave of feminism that came through, and she was a career woman. She had a job, she had children, but she worked really hard, and she always did, and she brought us up to be feminists, although in her home life there were contradictions in that she would make sure she was home to cook my stepdad's tea and all the rest of it, and do all the cooking and cleaning and do the full-time job, so that she struggled with those kind of typical 70s feminism problems, but if you think, that's kind of 40 years that feminism has been in the workplace. So you would have thought if it was going to trickle through, it would have trickled through by now. So what has made that generation of men who were in their 30s, do we think it's something about lad culture in the 90s? Do we think it's something about the availability of porn and the internet? What backpedaled that attitude that they had in the 90s and the noughties, do we think?
Yes, that large culture, availability of pornography. Yeah. the like
accessibility of everything, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
like the streamlined objectifying women. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
But I think the cat is adamant he's going to be in on this. The thing is, though, as well, I think what happened was, and this is again only my opinion, that all of the internet came in, and porn came in, and lad culture came in, and all the rest of it, and there wasn't enough time for those conversations to be had with young men at that time. Like, my little boy's 10 now, and I have those conversations with him. I mean, we had to turn a film off the other day because it was too sexist, and he got a 20-minute feminist rant about why it was sexist.
What film was it?
Oh, it was some horrendous thing with it. It had Adam Sandler in it. It was some horrendous.
Come on, you don't put an Adam Sandler film on if you're looking for gender equality.
I know. I could have known better. But I make sure I have those conversations as a mother of a boy. It is my responsibility to have those conversations with him. And I've said to him from a very young age, I don't care whether he marries a man or a woman or doesn't marry anybody, but I'm going to make damn sure he knows how to look after himself and cook and clean and pay bills and do his own washing and, brush his teeth and stuff. I'm not doing so well on the brushing the teeth front, but he can make a mean pasta sauce. But I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is that there wasn't enough time, like the internet and lad culture and everything came in so quickly, and porn became so readily available so quickly that there wasn't time to have those conversations and bring boys and girls, society as a whole, round to it. Do you think?
I think look at the people that are supposed to have that conversation as well. Like, I think the generation above us always get a bad rep, really. Like, they were dealing with new stuff, and I would imagine our kids are going to be sitting here in 20 years' time going, they never explained TikTok to us. Like, they didn't understand what they were dealing with. We didn't understand what we were dealing with. It's just infiltrated the culture. But I do think the tide is turning. Like, there's a lot of noise and publicity now about the dangers of pornography, and a lot of these lads mags are taken down, and lad culture is now not as acceptable and stuff. So I feel like it was a very damaging flash in the pan in terms of evolution. What do you think, Marisha?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's already changing. I think it kind of ties in with lots of other things as well. I don't think it's just, the whole sexism thing, really, and that whole sex-related thing. I think there's, people have a voice now, and want to use it. And, I think, people have, stopped. It's all about tolerance. People have stopped putting up with a load of shit, quite frankly.
Yeah.
They just won't put up with it anymore, and that's what's happened with the lads mags and with the, the newspapers and, this, that and the other. And I think it's all moving, towards that,
Yeah, I was listening to who's the lady, Gail Porter, who had alopecia and lost her hair, and she was talking about her in the 90s, because she did a photo shoot for what's that, Loaded, I think it was Loaded, and then they plastered it all over the House of Commons, and she was just completely butt naked, and they were saying, did you find it damaging? And she was, at the time, I thought I was mortified, and then I thought it was really empowering. She said, now I look back and I'm really proud of it because nobody else has had their arse published on the side of the House of Commons. I thought, fair play, love. But it was that thing, in the 90s, it was such a bizarre period of time, wasn't it? Because that was sold to us as female empowerment. If you feel empowered as a woman, get your tits out.
Yeah. Can you imagine that happening now? Like, I cannot imagine fucking, sorry for the swearing, what's her name? The Welsh woman who does the One Show. Can you imagine if her ass was plastered all over the Houses of Parliament? It just wouldn't happen, would it?
And it was very bizarre. It was that, we had the Spice Girls shouting about girl power, but the girl power... Yeah, it was Jordan and get your tits out, and that was it. So yeah, it was. I do think it was a period of time, and we have come out of that now. And I genuinely hope that children are not growing up thinking that. I know we've got social media, and they're very kind of image obsessed, aren't they? The kids of today, they're very concerned with how they look and getting the makeup right and all of the rest of it. But from conversations with Leon, I am genuinely quite hopeful that they understand the limits of it. I was talking to him the other day and I said, you do know that just because everybody posts really happy pictures on social media, that they're presenting the best part of their lives, and that the rest of their lives might still be, a shit show, and they might be crying in the bath at night, but they've just put a happy picture on Facebook or something. And he looked at me and was like, of course I know that. He said, it's social media. So I do. I am quite hopeful about it, that the kids of today do realise what it is, and that this kind of neuroses about how damaging it might be particularly an us generation thing, because we've lived without it and now we're grappling with it. I don't know. What do you think, Risha?
I don't know about that, actually. I think, that again comes from, people having conversations about education, etc., and kids being aware. I think there is a whole space of people that are damaged actually by social media, what's going on in that space. And I think it's just moved from one place to another. But I don't think that's anything that's new. There's always going to be something new, that takes the heat off somewhere else and goes somewhere else. And I think it's gone from that whole sex vibe to, what do I look like? Have I got the right makeup? And I do kind of, the whole social media is another conversation, I guess, really. Yeah. There's a huge generation that are, feeling lonely and a little bit lost at the moment because of, where we're at now. Yeah. So I think it's, again, it applies to some, not to others, I guess. That's that whole, privileged conversation again, really, isn't it?
It is. You can't make sweeping generalizations, can you? But I mean, we will talk about it, because obviously we're a digital marketing agency, so we will cover that at some point. Hannah, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking about what you guys were saying, and have we moved on, or has it just moved platforms? Like, we don't see TV presenters' asses plastered across the House of Commons because they're plastered on Instagram, and the objectification of women, like young women, has gone from Jordan getting her tits out to, what's her name, Kylie Jenner getting her ass out. Like, has it? And women are now, women have gone from getting tit jobs in the 90s to arse jobs in the 20s, whatever. Now, have we moved on, or have we just moved body part and moved platform?
I'm genuinely concerned for the arse jobs, right? How do you sit down? I'm like,
how do they lie down?
No, it just doesn't seem comfortable. But yeah,
you wouldn't be able to lie on your back, would you?
No. Yeah, they have like say that's like how your normal spine would go, and then like this is their arse. So they're like this. So like you just can't lie down, as I have to understand it.
We'll have another entire conversation about arses and social media then. Go on.
I think women's arses is a feminist issue at the moment, because like I have read somewhere that it's the year of the butt, because which makes me cringe. Like there's because like there's an obsession with like anal sex and like giant butts and like just like
bleaching. Everybody you have to get your vajayjay bleached. And
oh my God, I did not expect this conversation to be going this way. I'm not like it. I did not expect to hear that today.
We will come back to this. This is a conversation that I genuinely think we should have. But in the meantime, I just want to return back to business, because that's what we're supposed to be talking about.
Back to business.
Samara put a post on the other day, and I was commenting on it, and the comments were really, really interesting. And she was saying about that somebody, I think it was somebody on the One Show or something, and they'd asked this woman, how do you find juggling work and motherhood? And Samara put on, would they ask that of a man? And the conversation then unfolded of me saying, actually, and they never say, we're still referred to as working mums. You never hear somebody say, oh yeah, he's a working dad. And somebody else was saying about, if they're in the paper and stuff, it's always like, whatever, mother of one or whatever. So I think that language around feminism in the workplace is still really, really important, and another battle that we still haven't tackled. And it is still women are referred to as working mothers rather than just, and if you are referred to as a career woman, it's seen as a slight, it's like, are you going to be a mother or a career woman? You can't be both. And I think that, given how long feminism and the workplace have been around, I think that's still really worrying that, the Me Too movement has made no impact on that whatsoever. That's still the language that we use. And
but they are talking about different things though, aren't they? Like, I think it's important that we don't get our feminist issues tangled. Yeah, I think, and also we've gone way over time. But I think like the language of working women is one that we should definitely do, along with bleached bumholes and butts.
There's a rich mind to go at.
Yeah, we have. We've got a deep well that we can mine.
Oh my God! Puns here are just horrendous.
Anyway, you're right. I think feminist language is something that we should come on to, but just in terms of the Me Too movement, I do think it's interesting that I think it's had very little impact on that in kind of real terms, and how we still consider working women and how we think about them. But yeah, so anyway, that's it. We are coming up to time. We're running out of time. I have given us 45 minutes now instead of half an hour, because we can never keep any conversation to half an hour, can we? So thank you for people for joining us. Hannah, any last words?
Yeah, can I just say, stop calling us girls in meetings, please.
Right.
That's lovely. That's my last word.
Fair enough. You know what? It's really annoying because when men call us girls, I get really, really annoyed about that. But I call everybody girls. I think the thing is, because I'm a stereoptimist, and they often refer to each other as ladies, and I always cringe at the word.
Oh yeah, no, ladies is worse.
Like, I'm not a lady. I don't want to call ladies. But also, if you say hello, women.
Hello, women.
Hello, women.
Oh,
All right, women. Thanks for joining us. That sounds really weird as well. So I'm like, what is a better? Give me a better collective noun, and I shall adopt it. Guys, hey guys, subscribe below. Anyway, Marisha, final words.
I don't have any today. I'm just like, I don't know where to go after that. My brain's boggled with how that conversation ended. So I'm just going to have a lie down.
There we go. We broke Marisha.
Sorry, Marisha.
Well, women, thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I think we've fully bottomed out the Me Too movement there, haven't we?
Oh my God.
Stop it, Rachel.